What's everybody? Welcome to another episode on MisfitTV, the channel where we bring entertainment and sports discussions straight to you. Now, this might seem a little weird that I'm the one leading off the podcast today. Our friend Antoine unfortunately could not make it. He had some other business, but this still is the B.O.P podcast, the Buckets Only podcast. So today we're going to be talking about a lot of different basketball related topics surrounding the NBA bubble. My name is Jalen. This is my friend Jake. Jake, how you doing today, man?
No, I'm good. How about you?
I'm chilling. I'm just glad that the NBA is literally almost 2 weeks away at this rate. The countdown is like, it's dwindling. It's feeling really
Less than
good.
that because they do scrimmages.
Oh man, I almost forgot about that. So see that, I mean, and
Yeah,
hopefully they'll tape some of that because that's one of those things that usually they end up like skipping over during combines and stuff.
yeah.
So maybe we'll get a little behind the scenes look or something. I think where we should probably start, a good place to look at is news that's been very recent surrounding ESPN's reporter Adrian Wojnarowski. Most call him Woj, known for the good old Woj bombs. Anytime somebody gets signed to a certain team, traded, any type of crazy information gets handed out that only Woj would know. As of recent developments have taken place, apparently ESPN has went out on a limb and decided to suspend him for a comment that he made to Senator Josh Hawley. It was related to something in an email where Hawley said something like players should be able to say Blue Lives Matter on the back of their jerseys. I guess he was referring to the information that recently came out where players would be open to put any type of social epithets or anything like that on the back of their jerseys instead of their last name. Jake, I'll start with you. How do you feel about Woj, the GOAT, being suspended from ESPN?
I mean, I understand why ESPN felt the need to do it, and I hope it doesn't last that long because, like you said, Woj bombs are the best. His tweets are always the most helpful. But I mean, I agree with his message. It was a simple fu to the senator who came out and basically bashed the movement and said players should be able to speak out against Black Lives Matter and stuff like that. And it's like there's no room for that. Like in a time in this day and age, I don't know how you can come out and say something stupid like that. And so I want to know who leaked the email because I'm sure Woj didn't screenshot himself emailing the guy. And I want to know who leaked it and have a word with them.
Yeah, man. I honestly, the whole thing, can I start off by saying, as somebody who has like kept up with Woj pretty consistently over the last couple of years, a hard FU from Woj almost just seemed unbelievable when I first saw the information come out. I was like,
It means
Woj, really?
something. It means
Exactly.
something.
I mean, Woj he doesn't even curse on his own podcast. He has his own podcast and he doesn't go hooting and hollering like that. But as soon as he gets in an email with a senator, he's like, "Listen, dude, you're talking too much crap." Instant flip off. I mean, to be honest with you, besides being surprised, because obviously, like I said before, not the guy I'm expecting to send a hard fu to a senator for him. But like you said before, though, I think the main thing is like well deserved. Not super hype about him actually being suspended though. We need every Woj bomb we can get when we're hearing stuff like, guys apparently not following the quarantine protocols, which we'll touch on later on in the episode. Stuff like Rajon Rondo, who recently just got injured and now is going to be out for like 4 to 6 weeks because of that hand injury. Things like that. It's not that, hearing it from anybody else doesn't matter, but does it hit the same way as a Woj popping up on your phone does? Like,
It's just that kind of credibility that you see. Oh,
oh
Woj said it. This
man,
is legit.
him and Shams. I'll say him and Shams. Shams NBA is pretty good too. But come on now, everybody knows the game is Woj. Anything bad past Woj, it needs to get cleared by him first, and then we'll keep the ball rolling.
I
Um,
did see something that said it was only for 1 to 2 weeks, which is good. I hope I mean,
that's
because he
cool.
was, I think before that he was posting about how he's already sent stuff down to Orlando because I guess they got a room for him so that he could literally be there breaking news for us.
Man, I mean, I'm not surprised. I saw too many jokes in the comment sections of like certain posts on Instagram that was like, look, if y'all play with this man Woj, he gonna go to the athletic like everybody else. And I'm like, dude, y'all gotta leave this man Woj alone. Speaking of Woj bombs, we didn't really get one in this regard, but there was two bubble rules broken in terms of like players not following the protocol for the NBA bubble down there. Rashawn Holmes, who is a center for the Sacramento Kings, and Bruno Caboclo, I believe is how you say his name, and he plays for the Rockets. Two young players that can't seem to follow the rules regardless of the fact that they're in a professional setting. Jake, do you have any problem with the bubble like rules that they have, or an issue with the guys who decided to break them, considering now that they have to quarantine for an extra 10 days before they can get back into their practice facilities and stuff again?
I mean, I don't have a problem with the rules that the NBA created for the bubble because they got to make sure that they can keep COVID out of it. Because if it gets in the bubble, it's trapped in there. It can't really, like, it's going to be hard to do contact tracing with all those guys. And eventually you're going to have half the league under quarantine. I have more of a
Again.
problem with the guys like leaving. And it was like I saw Kelly Oubre tweeted out something. He was like, "Y'all, like if you're unhappy with the quarantine, like with the bubble food, you can Postmates deliveries. You just gotta go across the street." And then the news came out about Rashawn Holmes crossing the street to get some delivery, and Kelly Oubre was like, never mind, LOL." So, I mean, I think it's all kind of fun and games right now. Like, obviously, it sucks for the Kings and the Rockets that they can't practice with those two guys for 10 days. I hope it doesn't continue because it would kind of put the NBA in a bad spot if, like, a decent player for a team automatically had to quarantine in the middle of a playoff run. I don't think it'll be the last instance, but with that being said, I hope they kind of get it under control.
Yeah, I mean, it's silly to feel like you have to talk to grown men about their safety, you know what I mean? And it's really weird, but at the same time, I understand why they cracked down on them so hard about it. Recent news that came out that actually today it was already confirmed that Russell Westbrook had came down with COVID, but also apparently James Harden as well, which is pretty big hit, not just to the Rockets, but like to the entire NBA in terms of its return ratings, things like that. So I can't necessarily be mad at them for cracking down on it and saying, well, dude, get back in your room and never come back out for at least like, 10 days or whatever the case is with that. I have to kind of piggyback on the initial question with another question for you, which is with guys like, Holmes, Caboclo, Westbrook now being out, James Harden now being out, at least for the time being. Guys like Avery Bradley, who already chose not to come back, Rajon Rondo, who might be injured for the return. With all these guys dropping like flies, whether it be, needed to be put back into quarantine, choosing to remain quarantined, injuries, how do you think that that's gonna like affect how we receive that initial 8 game regular season in terms of like just seeing guys back on the court again?
I don't know. I mean, so Russ and Harden actually weren't in Orlando yet. They were still, they didn't travel with the team, which I still think is kind of weird because if they didn't travel with the team, it could have been because they had COVID a week ago and we just now are hearing about it, which another reason we need Woj back. um,
Facts.
but it makes me wonder like how many guys tested positive and we're just not hearing about it, or like is the NBA kind of like hiding the actual statistics of like who tested positive and stuff like that. um so I feel like if like there could be a big problem right now and the public just has no idea what's going on because it seems like a lot of guys have it, and there's also like a lot of guys that aren't in the bubble yet who you don't hear that they have COVID. You just don't know what they're doing, waiting to show up. So I don't know. I mean, I feel like the first 8 games will kind of just be like a roll call, to kind of see who's there, like who showed up, who's healthy, stuff like that before the playoffs.
When you look at it that way, if you want to address it as a roll call, I mean, it's definitely a little bit of another way to phrase it too would be like a dress rehearsal. I mean, either way, it's one of those things where we are not going to see people at full strength. And we're also going to see like a lot of interesting faces that like we have not seen for most of the year in terms of where they are. The homie J.R. Smith is a Laker now. The Jamal Crawford, six-man Jamal Crawford is now on the Nets, taking up a lot of room considering that a lot of people like Kevin Durant, who already was planning on not coming back before anyway, seems like Kyrie's coalition is clean as ever. Spencer Dinwiddie decided that he's not coming back. I mean, Jamal Crawford's going to be the oldest guy in the league and might end up leading the goddamn playoffs and minutes played if the Brooklyn Nets end up staying in the mix.
I mean, he can still ball out. His last game, he put up 51.
And see, I was just
Like
about to
that was
ask
the
you,
last game he
yeah,
played.
I was just about to ask you with guys like that, considering that, I mean, because Jamal Crawford is no slouch, and especially with stuff like, I mean, we've seen him in little like, off script leagues like Rucker Park and different things like that in terms of he has his own basketball league, I believe, as well. We know he's a bucket. Is there anybody that you've seen news come up in terms of either being added to a team or already on a team that you feel like is probably going to be asked to step up or like, well, you want to see big minutes from because you haven't seen him in a while?
I mean, I don't really know as far as big minutes for anyone outside of guys that get signed with the Nets. Um, I think if there was one, I think Joakim Noah could kind of be a dark horse player to get some quality minutes
Okay.
and get some experience because if you look at the Clippers, they only have two centers. One of them is Montrezl Harrell, who's like 6'7". Um, and with the exception of the Rockets out west, like you look at most of the top teams, they have dominant forwards and big men. Like you got the Lakers with AD and Dwight Howard. You have Jokic. You have like a Rudy Gobert. All those guys that the Clippers are going to have a tough time matching up with. And you have Joakim Noah, who I don't know if he was ever Defensive Player of the Year, but he definitely made
I
a
think he was
couple.
once for the Bulls.
He was once, yeah,
I
and
think
he
once.
he was definitely like defensive is his specialty, and if he can help the Clippers, I think he can get some quality minutes.
Considering life dealing with big men, I mean, it's one of those things where I think Joakim Noah, yeah, definitely is sneaky. Like I said earlier, I'm kind of interested to see how some of these little random signings go. I don't know, seeing J.R. Smith with LeBron James, the last time I saw him, he was looking at him like this because apparently J.R. Smith couldn't look at the scoreboard. But we'll let him live and see how this postseason goes.
Oh, didn't they
Go ahead.
also get Dion Waiters?
I think so. I think that was a signing earlier on before quarantine had popped off, though. You're gonna have a lot
It
of
makes no
knuckleheads on the
sense to
squad.
me. It makes no sense to me. What
Yeah,
it
they
seems
are
like
gonna
they're
have a
looking at all
lot
the
of
big
knuckleheads.
names. I don't think the Lakers are focused on improving the team. I think they just like they want to buy into their own hype. You know, the fans are like, oh, is JR going to LA? Is JR going to LA? And Rob Palinka's over there like, all right, sure, let's bring him in. Why not?
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if the Lakers were playing 2K My Team and just ran out of slots. I
Yeah.
mean, let's be real. They kind of had to scramble before the season started anyway, forced to, instead of being able to get guys like Kawhi and Trey for Paul George and different stuff like that, they had to settle for Danny Green and Avery Bradley and stuff like that, who now are guys that either were supposed to be contributing players on the team or are going to be asked to do a lot more than they may be signed up for.
As a Clippers fan, I am willing to bet that the Lakers asked Avery Bradley not to show up in Orlando. I've seen what he's done the past couple of years. I'm so happy we were able to trade him away to Memphis at the trade deadline last year. He is like he was really good on the Celtics. Ever since then, man, I've just had a hard time seeing the hype in him. I don't understand how he's like I think JR is automatically a better option than Avery Bradley. I'm just gonna
Okay.
put that out there.
I
And
feel
Avery
that. And
Bradley, he was like I think he was a starter.
yeah. I think he was starting at the two guard. And I think that's funny that I think that actually might even be a better way to segue because the funny part about what you said is like, oh man, they probably asked him to stay home. Well, listen, from some of the photos that we have seen from bubble quarantine life, I'm thinking Avery Bradley might have been staying home because he had a chef. What we've seen across social media, there was a what has become relatively an infamous post of what the bubble meal plan looks like, and you alluded to it a little bit earlier about guys not being too happy about what they had to eat and different stuff like that. There was also news that apparently like NBA players can use the Disney theme park after hours. Not too sure how that's gonna work out considering, Rashawn Holmes and Caboclo low-key might have already ruined that for everybody. Let's put it in like an interesting fashion. What do you think living in bubble quarantine life like that would be like? And if this is something that has to be maintained for the entirety of the season's like remaining schedule, do you think guys are going to be able to make it?
I mean, a lot of those guys, I don't know if they will, but like for me, I think that would be awesome. Like, I would work there for free. I
Oh
don't care. I
wow.
would scrub the floors and look up and see all kinds of NBA stars walk by. That would be insane. And I don't know. I mean, I think the players can get whatever they want out of it. If they're going there, like a lot of the guys, I understand that they have like the playoff mindset and they're just there to play, but like they've also set it up so that they can have fun. Like they got like a 2K lounge, they got like DJs and pools, and like you said, they can go to Disney after hours. Like you can't you can't blame the NBA for not trying. Like they've
For sure.
obviously done a lot of stuff to try to make the players happy. Um, Even the food, on the other hand, like it didn't look like it didn't look bad.
I mean,
It
it looked kind
wasn't.
of cafeteria-esque.
That was so. I heard that that was for the first like 2 or 3 days while they were still all in quarantine.
Ah, okay.
And
See,
then
that
I
that
heard
makes
that like they
sense.
got improved meals and like they brought in chefs and stuff. Because like for me, that's a trade-off, man. Like I would have no problem with that food, but it's you got all these like multi-millionaires and all these guys who are used to having five private chefs cater to their every need, and they're not going to get that because there's so many other guys that are also expecting that. But like you see some of the guys posting, and it doesn't look bad, the food. It just doesn't look like it's enough for them. So I see where their frustration comes from, but it's like I feel like a lot of it is just kind of like first world problems. I think this whole
Yeah.
thing is like with the bubble and people not being happy.
I feel that. I mean, the main thing is like, anybody in normal society would like freak out over the idea of being stranded at Disney World. I mean, come on. You know what I mean? It's one of those things where like normal people would be like, dude, what's your problem? Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And I completely understand that. Like you said before, it's a huge point. It's a good one too, is that these are multimillionaire guys that we are talking about that are used to a certain way of living, run things a certain type of way, do things a certain type of way. And you can definitely sense the privilege on them a little bit, I guess, through this whole thing. And they definitely have a little bit better circumstances than I guess some of us have in terms of trying to live throughout all of this. I mean, do you think any of this bubble life stuff is gonna actually impact the play on the court though?
I mean, see, I don't know. Like, I don't think the actual lifestyle, like the bubble lifestyle, can. But I think that, like, with guys like Rashawn Holmes and Bruno Caboclo, who already broke quarantine, I think if that number keeps rising and people that got to go into quarantine, you're talking about guys missing out on valuable practice time and potentially even games. I think when you look at it with that respect, it definitely can change the way things go. Um, which is why like I think the Rockets are in trouble. I mean, obviously, especially if Westbrook and Harden are unable to play, but even if they are, like, while the other 21 teams, or I guess not all 21, if you look at other teams like the Nets, but while most teams are getting practice time in with their stars, like you look at the Lakers and Clippers, who still need to build up that chemistry with the new stars that they brought in. Um, and it's like you're missing out on a lot of valuable time that you didn't get over the past 4 months, and now I think it's gonna hurt teams like the Rockets in the playoffs.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, this is already going to be a unique postseason. I think we both have already agreed that it's a little unfair to do the whole placing an asterisk next to who wins the championship thing. I remember Giannis is actually quoted for saying there is no asterisk. This is probably the hardest way to win a championship that there is. This is probably one of the hardest ways to get to the championship and come out on top. I think that there's going to be a lot to desire though when the season comes back. We haven't seen basketball for a while. I was talking to a friend earlier. I've literally been locked in watching NBA reruns on their YouTube channel, like full games, just to get back and used to watching stuff that's longer than like a 15-minute set of highlight clips. So it's definitely a lot that we can definitely still gain and enjoy from the season coming back. I'm just hoping that everybody is excited as we are for the season to come back, because I know there's a lot of different stuff that's going on. And
I
free
think there's
Woj,
gonna
man.
I think there's
Free
gonna be
Woj.
more fans than usual that watch it. Like
Mm.
I think like I personally don't watch it, but my brothers have been watching like cornhole. Like they have like an
Wow.
official cornhole league where they can socially distance and they all got masks and it's like live TV and it's like it's the closest you can get to sports. And obviously I have no interest in watching two guys throw bean bags, or
Right?
I don't even have interest in watching people play golf. Like that's started to come back, but I think when you look at the NBA, it has people that guys like that everyone can relate to. Like you look up, everyone knows the name LeBron. Everyone knows like all the like at least a couple stars that if you're flipping through the channels, oh wow, basketball's on. All right, like I think the NBA's ratings are gonna soar, especially if there's no NFL season because they can't seem to get their stuff together.
You're not wrong. I actually think that's a great way to leave off the podcast. I think with the question of the day, it should be, do you guys plan on watching the NBA when it returns? As Jake said before, it's definitely this, rise and fall in interest in sports where, we went from, focusing so much on social justice and things like that, and we still are. But as sports slowly starts creeping itself back with things like golf and I guess cornhole now, the interest in sports is starting to peak back up a little bit. So question to you guys that you can leave your comments down below: are you guys planning on watching the NBA when it returns, and if so, who are you picking to win this year's championship? That has been our edition of the Buckets Only podcast. If you are new, like, comment, and subscribe, and we will catch you on the next one. Peace.